Welcome to the Brady Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, riding shotgun year after year. It's my main man, Reggie. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on, Ken? I am always here, man. You're right. Year after year, day
I
after
mean,
day,
we're
month
we're
after month,
is this our third
season after
year or fourth year?
season after season. Nah, it's not 4 years. We've not been doing this for 4 years.
It's been three at least. I need to go back
Okay.
and check our historical charts and see when we started here.
Nah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Nah, it's probably been three. This might be our third. We might be headed into our third season.
Okay.
But
Well, we've been enjoying it.
either way,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hopefully, some of our listeners have been enjoying it. If this is your first time here, go ahead and subscribe. Right, just click the button. Sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't. Hopefully, all the time you listen. But hopefully, you'll become a fellow Burgundy and Gold knucklehead because there's room on this ride for everybody. All right, we
yeah.
don't have just two chairs here. We got a whole studio crowd that likes to participate in this journey with us for the fans of the Washington Commanders. Everybody's welcome. Everybody is welcome. So
Was that for me?
that was for everybody joining. That was partially
Oh,
for you. It was partially for the fans, encouraging more fans to join. Stadiums have a limited amount, right? Washington Commander Stadium has the limited amount of seats. We don't have that, right?
that's right.
We
So make
don't.
sure you like and subscribe to our podcast. Right?
Yeah.
Get the word out there, man. Get the
Yeah.
word out there.
But we're gonna kind of catch up on some things here. It's again, this is the slow time season. We had free agency. Now we got the draft that we're going to talk about here briefly. Kind of go over some people that we think might fall to the 29th pick. And it's a strange place to be at 29, and we can talk about that. I know we've mentioned it before, but a couple little things in the news before we get to the draft. Washington Commanders looks like they might have something close to, I'm not going to say finalized, but finalized
The framework
at
is
the
the word
old
they was using.
RFK Stadium.
The framework
The
in
framework.
place is
The-
the buzzword they kept using.
And when you're that far along, something has to go wrong for it to fall apart, right? They're talking dollars. And it sounds like they're in agreement of dollars. They're in agreement of the location. They're in agreement of, the money's being spent on roads and infrastructure by the city, and the stadium is going to be more on the Commanders' shoulders, the burden for that. It sounds like it's moving a few stops into the city on the old metro there, Reg.
Well, the details is that Josh Harris and the ownership group is slated to put up $2.5 billion towards the new stadium. And yeah, and the city of DC is expected to put up about 800 to 850 million dollars. And from all the reports, they said when it comes to cities building stadiums, that is a hell of a deal for the city. For the city to only have to use $850 million, which is to go toward the building, the streets, parking, and all the infrastructure around the stadium.
Right.
The problem with it is that the mayor of DC there has to jump the hurdle for is apparently the city is getting ready to lay off a bunch of people because of the budget, and they need to cut costs. So you're going to tell people, hey, we're going to have to lay you off because we don't have the money, but then you're going to somehow find $850 million to help build the stadium. Now, it doesn't affect me, but I can easily sit here and understand why an $850 million would be an investment for the next 20, 30 plus years for all the money that's going to bring into the city. So you typically will recoup a lot of that money.
Right.
But it's a hard sell to the people who's about to lose their jobs because you supposedly don't have money but then all of a sudden you found $850 million in the couch cushion to give to some billionaires
Yeah.
to build a stadium that people who got laid off may not even go to the stadium, right? So that's the challenge here, that the mayor has in the upcoming. From what I understand, I think she has to release the budget for the upcoming year and such, so forth and so on. But that's kind of the conundrum that the mayor finds herself in, man. But what I've learned over the years is when cities need money, they somehow can find it. And I don't know that there's been many stadium deals, arena deals that the public did not want, but if the city wanted it, it got done,
Right.
regardless whether you liked it or not. And so I suspect that somehow, some way, this will be spent in a way, and it's going to piss off some people. But that stadium, I'm pretty sure, will probably be back at the old RFK Stadium in DC.
Yeah. I 100% understand the aspect of public money for private um, ventures, right? I will admit something about that isn't right. And I don't care if it's, several years ago, it was Amazon talking about coming to uh, Northern Virginia, and Northern Virginia was going to spend all this money in tax breaks and everything like that, for, a top 10 company in the United States. NFL is not hurting for money. All you have to do is watch and see how the draft or how the salary cap goes up 30, $40 million every single season. It wasn't that long ago that it was, 120 million total. Now we're approaching 300 million in salary cap this coming year. So I can understand. But if they
It's not
do it
an
right
NFL
and
deal,
they
though.
are able to generate the revenue to pay it back over the long haul, hopefully the city will not just having the team there, but hopefully the city benefits, right? It's good when the company benefits and the city or state or whoever is giving the tax break or whatever. You don't like to see these things come along and only be one-sided. We've seen that with stadiums in the past, right?
Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, man, when a city puts money toward these deals, it's not about who can afford to do it. It's a partnership.
Right.
And I understand people don't like public money to go toward a private business, but the city is going to benefit from this business. And this is going to be again, I understand when you're not putting money back in the city to help areas of the city. But if you're taking this money, because look, man, supposedly they're going to build this stadium. It's going to be a dome. They're going to get things like the World Cup, the Super Bowl, the
Concerts, big
co-
concerts.
concerts, and NCAA, all these different things that are going to come. Well, who benefits from that? The city. You bring in people. People come into your hotels. They rent cars. They spend money. I mean, so the city will benefit from this. And I understand it's hard for people who could care less about football, basketball, baseball, whatever the sport may be. And you don't want your tax money to go to it. Well, but it's to help your city, man. And as long as the deal is fair for the city, then I personally don't see a problem with it. Now, there's been some times where the city has gotten screwed because they didn't negotiate. And I will take the city of Arlington here in Dallas, what the Cowboys Stadium is, because they so wanted to have the Cowboys in their town that they pretty much signed off on a ridiculous deal with Jerry Jones. And
Right.
Jerry's kind of screwed them. But that's specific to that city. But overall, the city of Arlington has had Final Fours, their Cotton Bowl, the Super Bowl. They have all kinds of stuff out there at that facility that brings in revenue to the city of Arlington. So
Even tractor pulls here in Texas. Um, the and one of the things when I talking about that, here in Texas it wasn't as big of a deal or for the Cowboys. I know it moved from one town to the other. This is going from Maryland to DC. So you and I travel to come see the games, and we stay in Maryland, right? And we know that the hotel taxes and all the taxes, whether it's the rental car, the hotels, everything like that, it's not cheap, right? It's I don't know, 20%. It's not your regular, 5 to 8% sales tax. It's that plus double or triple that when you move. So all that will now potentially be in DC, and that alone, without anything else, could very well pay for it. With not just the 9 or 10 games that are there in a season, but to your point, the other events where people come in and they stay, they eat at the restaurants, that everything's going to be around there. The old FedEx Field has been there for 30 years, roughly, right? It'll be over 30 by the time the new stadium comes, wherever it is. So when you think of 900 million divided over 30 years, now you have a lot of time to recoup that revenue. And again, hopefully it's a win-win for both the fans, ownership, and the city. So
absolutely.
Besides that news, before we get into the draft, a quick, I don't know about a review, but a quick synopsis of our draft from last year. I mean, if we only hit on our first draft pick last year, that would have been fine, right? The way we hit with Jayden Daniels. What's
Not
that?
Really? I mean, it gets overshadowed by Jayden Daniel and the promise, but if none of the other draft picks hit, that's still not good.
But if you could hit on your future quarterback for the next 10 years and you missed on everything else, you can recover. You can recover. If you miss on Jayden Daniels, right? If Jayden Daniels ends up being a Leaf or whoever's been a big bust, and you hit on other people, it's nice that the other people hit, but you're still going to struggle until you get that quarterback position resolved. We know that for the past 30 years, right? And I'm not trying to oversell it. It's just that's how important the quarterback is in the NFL. Show me a team in today's NFL that does well without a stud quarterback.
Detroit Lions.
He's been playing very well.
That guy's not a stud, man. They got a hell of a team around that guy.
They do, but until he faced Washington, he had the number one team almost all season long. The last couple seasons. No, I'm not trying to put golf in the Patrick Mahomes. I'm not putting him top 3 or 4, but he's 8 to 10.
Would you take Jared Goff on your team?
As opposed to anybody that we've had over the past prior to Jayden Daniels? Yeah. I mean, he's better than 98% of them. You might make a case for 1 or 2 of them, but he's better than everybody else.
Jared Goff to me is no different, no better than Dak.
Don't say it. Then who?
Dak Prescott. They're right in the same category with me. The
difference is you're going to get people that think that Dak Prescott's pretty good, but
my point being is you got Detroit has a way much better team around Jared Goff than what Dak has for him, and that's the difference. That
depends on the year. That depends on the year.
You bring Jared Goff to Dallas, they're not doing any better than what they're doing now.
I don't know about that. I think if you own stock in Dak Prescott, you better sell while it's high right now, as high or as low as it is, because I think that stock's going down. But as we talk about that, some of the other names we hit with, obviously hit with Jayden Daniels last year, and then at cornerback was also a success. I think there's still kind of a question mark with 3 or 4 of the other players. They had some moments, but they didn't take over and become, that guy's a starter, right? And starts off with, and I'll just name them off. Johnny Big Fig Newton. I know you don't like me to say Big Fig Newton, but him, Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott, and then Jordan McGee. uh, tight end, wide receiver, linebacker, and a tackle. We got them all over the board, and they
So
had
which
a
one?
moment here or there. Other than Jordan McGee, he had some injuries, but
So which one of the four you think to keep the trajectory of this team going upward? Of the four, you can make the case for each one of them on why they need to take a step forward. But which one is most important in your opinion?
uh, this year, probably Johnny Newton.
Okay.
And I think he can. I don't think we saw impact of him, but all the coaches and people who have access to film said at the back half or the back 3 or 4 games of the year, along with the playoffs, that he was playing some solid ball. He had some injuries, midway through the season that kept him out and slowed him down, and he needed to learn the NFL. Not that he's a little guy by any means, but we all know it's different in the NFL. These guys are in college, you're lifting to get drafted. When you're in the NFL, there's a whole bunch of people wanting to take your job, and you better be lifting and training and studying and everything to keep that job. And I think he's, not that he didn't understand it, but he found out, put in the effort, and the back part of the season, and there was a little bit of progress on that. What about yourself?
Well, I think the biggest thing for Johnny Newton is he spent practically all of his off season and training camp rehabbing from the foot injuries, right?
Right.
So as the season started, it was essentially his training camp, and it was probably a little bit of OJT as the season progressed. He now, barring any setback or major injury, will have his first full off season to be ready to go into the season. So to your point, I agree. I was down to 2 people, and Johnny Newton was one. But since you went Johnny Newton, I'm going to go with my number 2 guy, and my number 2 is Ben Sinnott. Just simply because I think the defense for Washington, even though they made a lot of moves in the offseason, I think the defense is still a work in progress. And therefore, I think the best defense Washington may have going into the season is an offense. And so, with that being the case, I don't believe that Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz both would be on the team next year. And if one of them it'll just be one, but not both. I can't see them doing it for a third year. And so I think we need to see something out of the tight end position, because we saw how much Jayden relied on the tight end on the offense. And I think we need to see a huge step from Ben Sinnott this year. Would be my number 2 guy here from the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. I would love for him to become something. It's not common that a skilled position where you have opportunity, it's not like you're injured or anything like that, where you do almost nothing year one. That all of a sudden year 2, year 3, all of a sudden you come along. If he would have been, if he would have had 30 catches, 40 catches, I'd have to go look up his numbers. Maybe you can look him up real quick. I would be surprised if he had 20 catches all year long. And considering you played 18 games, 19, 20 games, including the playoffs. I don't think he had 20 catches. Doesn't mean he can't. And, Zach Ertz played a steady role. If he was able to do it, I think Cliff Kingsbury definitely could have found a way to use him. So he's one of the more concerning of the 4 names that I mentioned. I think Luke McCaffrey could make a step up. He had moments here and there. I could see him. Now, granted, they went and got Deebo Samuel, and so the ball's going to get distributed around. But Luke might be able to come in and be that sneaky little slot receiver that I mean, we would love to have a dependable slot receiver. We thought it was going to be Dotson. We thought it was, somebody before then. So we'll see if he's able to fill that role. And then Jordan McGee, was injured prior to his injury through training camp. You heard nothing but good things about the guy. From the coaches, you heard it from the beat reporters that were there, that he was flying all over the field. He understood the defense, and was going to be an impact player as a rookie. Had the injury, and then you almost really didn't see him all season long. So, Jordan McGee might be the surprise. He could be, because we got nothing. And
I say the bar was so low, though.
Pardon me?
I said the bar was so low. So
it was an injury, right? He got injured, right? And so we could all of a sudden get him back, and he becomes the impact player this coming year that we were hoping he was going to be last year. Time will tell.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make a case for Ben Sinnott, but you asked me to look at the numbers here. He had 5 receptions for 28 yards.
So I mean, he needs to. I mean, if he quadrupled it, it still wouldn't be enough, right?
I understand, but look.
I mean, you're laughing about it because you didn't anticipate it to be that bad.
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't know, right? I'll be honest.
Right.
We all know that he didn't provide a lot of production to the offense. We know that,
right?
But I also, to you're concerned about it. I'm not concerned. After year 2, and we get something like this, then I will be concerned, because I also have to ask myself, for whatever the reasons were, he wasn't asked to do a whole lot. Luke McCaffrey got a lot of opportunities. If nothing else, he was even on the field. I don't know that Ben Sinnott got on the field. Between John Bates being the blocking tight end and Zach Ertz having a resurgence, I think it was just hard for Ben to get snaps. And so whether that was just sit back and learn, kid, from the vet, Zach Ertz, or he just wasn't getting it and therefore he couldn't get himself on the field, I don't know the answer to that. But I'm not willing to say his 5 reception is simply because the kid can't play. So I'm willing to see what happens in year 2, because they say in the NFL, all the coaches will say that there's a big leap and a big jump for players between year 1 and year 2. So let's give it another chance. Now, if all of a sudden year 2 and we're seeing the same lack of production and opportunities for this kid, and they draft another tight end on this coming weekend, then I think there's something to be said for that. But I'm not ready to give up on him, man, because I think maybe he was just behind 2 guys that had a significant role or a particular role. The blocking tight end from Bates, who clearly they re-signed him to, I think, a 3-year deal. And then you got the vet, Zach Ertz, who's clearly going to be brought here with a chance to play. So he was going to have to play lights out, meaning Ben Sinnott, to be able to supplant Zach Ertz and take some snaps from him. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, look, I would love for him to come up. All the tape that I saw on him coming out of college, he looked like a solid guy that could potentially get coached up and become the big, because he's a big, tall tight end. But we will see. We will see. We know we're going to have a hole at tight end next year or the year after. So if we have the guy on the team right now that's ready to fill that hole, even if it's at 70%, 75%, we'll take it and let him grow from there.
Well, let's see what happens.
As far as needs, we've talked about it as we go in here. I think from if you had 2 or 3 needs, we're drafting only off of need, right? That's what you normally don't want to do. You want to draft off the best available player. But if you had to draft off of straight need, what would be 2 or 3 positions outside of defensive end, right? Everybody's going to say defensive end for us, but take away the given of defensive end. What would be 2 or 3 positions that you want?
Um, in any particular order?
No. You're going to fill you're going to be able to fill those positions in the draft with at least a solid player.
I
He's going to be at
think
least a solid starter.
it
What
in no
would be
particular
two
order.
other ones besides defensive end that you would want to fill?
In no particular order, I think they need to go corner, running back, and receiver. And I think if I was putting it in order, I would probably go running back, corner, wide receiver. Running back because I think we need an elite playmaker. Cornerback because I think we still need to build because there's some unknowns about I'm drawing a blank on his name, and the kid we got from the Saints,
Oh,
Lattimore. And I think they need to go wide receiver because I don't know what's going to happen. I think with the future of Debo, I suspect that maybe they'll try to keep him here. But barring any injuries, we were pretty good last year. But man, Terry or Debo go down, and I think we're hurting.
Yeah.
You can easily make the case of linebacker, right? Because again, Bobby Wagner, right? I don't know if he's going to do this third consecutive, 1-year deal here.
Right.
But I would go running back, cornerback first.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would. I think you even have to look at safety, right? Jeremy Chin had a great season last year for Washington, and Washington decided to let him walk. I'll say, by no means was he an all pro safety, but I'm concerned that we're going to miss him back there, making some hits, making some plays, making some tackles, pushing up. He was a solid player for us last year. He got paid a nice bump in pay to go out to the Raiders. Is that right?
I think so.
I believe that's where he went, out to Vegas. Stay out of the casinos, Jeremy. Stay out of the casinos. You'll lose all that signing bonus. But yeah, and I agree. We need to look at running back. I don't know at what point in the draft we need to get it. This is where you're looking at best available player, and then if best available player comes along and it's a running back and it crosses up with your needs, go ahead and take it. So yeah, we'll see. I think you mentioned wide receiver. You could always use more speed. I'm interested in a speed receiver. And I think by the end of next year, I could be wrong, but Terry and Debo will both be 30, I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, you got to all of a sudden freak out and go draft 2 or 3 wide receivers in the next, year or two and just go wide receiver crazy. But, if you could pick up a wide receiver in the 3rd round, and sits behind for a year or two and produces, and then all of a sudden steps up, it keeps you from getting desperate, right? Whether that's through free agency or through the draft. You don't ever want to be desperate for any position in the NFL. You overpay, you overanalyze, and that's not good.
So Terry will be 30 in September.
Okay.
And Debo just turned 29 in January.
So by the end of the season, he'll be 30, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So yeah. So again, wide receiver would certainly be an option, right?
Yeah.
But
anyway. So let's go ahead and start looking at the draft. And I mentioned it earlier. We're in a peculiar position, right? Normally we're in a position of like, oh, do you think we'll get this guy or that guy? Right? We're at 7, we're at 6, we're at 2, we're, once in a while we're in the teens. And even if you're at 10, 5 guys that are going to be gone, right? And so now you're looking at the next 5 guys, which is going to be there, who might slip and fall to your lap. And when you're at 10, you normally have a glaring hole, a big glaring hole somewhere that you need to go and get. Washington is not in that case. I mean, we say defensive end. That's probably our biggest hole. But defensive end, unless you're picking the top 5, you don't count on a defensive end in the back half of the draft being a true impact player right out of the gates. He may end up being, but you're not getting one of the what were considered across the board as a top 2 or 3 defensive end when you're sitting all the way back at 29. How do you think they approach this overall? Not even counting positions. How do you think they approach this?
Well, clearly no one knows, right? This is the one year I think no one knows what Washington is going to do in the draft.
Including Washington, I think.
No, they know.
They don't know because they don't know how it's going to fall. They have a plan. They have 17 plans in place, but they don't know.
Well, that's still a plan. It's a contingency plan, right?
Yeah, no, I said they don't know. They have a plan, but they don't know. Last year at number 2, they knew.
You could be at number 10 and not know. If that's your definition of knowing, I'm just saying they know what they plan to do at the number 29 pick.
Okay.
Now they have contingency plans based on how the draft falls and how trades take place and all those types of things. And I guarantee you they have probably 3 or 4 guys that they have pegged for the 29th pick. Yeah. I 100% believe that. It's just us and in the media, because we're not in any of these meetings and haven't done the evaluations that they have on the scouting and stuff. We don't know what they're going to do, but I guarantee you they actually absolutely have 3, 4 guys that they know they're trying to target at the 29th pick. 100%.
Right.
Because they have to know what direction they want to go in. But I'm with you. They have probably 15 different contingency plans. That being said, this is, typically no one wants to be bad during the season. But the only way you get a top 10 pick is when you're bad, right? And so this is when it's like, oh, I wish we had a top 10 pick, but that meant you was bad the following year. And so we're picking in a spot that we haven't picked, as I mentioned, probably in 30 years, just about, to be picking this late in the draft. I think in recent memory, we was picking 20th or 21st or something like that. But man, this is maybe 19th, but this is some unfamiliar territory for us. I personally think they're going to trade out of the first round. But for the sake of this conversation, if they stay at 29, I think they target defensive end, pass rusher, defensive end, 100%.
Okay.
I think that's the way they're going to go.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they.
But let me say this.
Go ahead.
All the reports are that picking this late in the draft, the guys that would be available to them at defensive end are typically pass rush specialists. They're not that all around guys that are going to go in the top 10. Your Micah Parsons, your Myles Garrett. None of those guys are going to be sitting at 29. So the guys they're getting are going to be pass rush specialists and guys who have question marks about them. That being the case, that's what Dante Fowler was for us. And we lost Dante Fowler as he went back to Dallas. After leaving Dallas to go to Washington, he went back to Dallas Cowboys, and Washington didn't re-sign him. And he signed on a 1-year deal. And I don't know if Washington just didn't want to pay him what he wanted to make or what. But I can see them late in the first round drafting the guy and hoping that he develop, or if nothing else, he's a compliment to what they've done in free agency across the line, because they got a lot of bodies that they went in free agency to throw in that defensive line. And whether that is to do rotation, it is clearly to scheme and stop the run. And then they want to be able to get after the quarterback. And so I think they're going to grab one of these guys that they can get in that back half of the first round to be a pass rushing specialist to be able to disrupt the quarterback.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they draft. I'm sorry, if they trade out of the first round. To your point, somebody is sitting at the fifth pick in the second round. They can jump up into the first round and get a player that they've targeted, and they get him on a 5-year deal instead of a 4-year deal, and that's where the not only getting the quality of player, but getting them for an additional year on a contract becomes valuable. There's a big difference between the 32nd pick and in the first round and the first pick in the second round. Just from how you have control over the player, and from a salary wise, also you've got a what tend if they end up hitting, they tend to be a less expensive player for an additional year. So you'd always want that. I mentioned it in one of our other podcasts. I'm all in on offense this year. I think if somebody falls to you unexpectedly that's on the defense, I'm for that. But I don't know that the player is going to be a difference maker. But if you take somebody who is above average and you add him to an already potent offense, that player can have an impact. Whether it's one of the high end first round wide receivers that potentially slides, whether it's an offensive lineman to go on the other side of Tunzel, what guard or a right tackle that you book them in, and now Jaden has all kinds of time. Then you follow up in the second round or third round and pick the running back, and you just beefed up our left tackle last year, Coleman, will move to guard. You have Tunzel. You go get another stud offensive tackle, and you get a young, fiery, quick running back, along with Debo and everything else that we had last year. Man, it's staying healthy. This offense would be trouble.
Okay, well, that's what you want, but what do you think they're going to do?
It wouldn't surprise me if we do something like that. That we go for an attack. It always comes down to who's on the board. I think if we take a defensive end, he may be a value pick at 29, but at the same time, I don't want to get a defensive end because I need a defensive end, right? Especially at 29. If you're at 4, you're getting what should be a stud defensive end, typically at that pick. At 29, I don't know what he's going to be. Is he going to be a role? He could be a role player and still be a solid player, but give me that impact wide receiver that is just rotating in with Terry and Debo. Sometimes we're running 3 wide receivers, sometimes 2, whatever. Heck, go 4 wide with McCaffrey out there as well. It just opens it up. It opens it up.
I will say that you're not alone. I mean, over the course of the past few months leading up to this, there have been a lot of people who thought that Washington should go offense early, simply because, again, as I mentioned, the defense is still a work in progress, and the best defense you can have is a potent offense. So I don't think they do it,
right?
But it's not far fetched. And would it shock me? No. But for the sake of this conversation, I don't think they go offense with the 29th pick. But there's a lot of people who think that they could and should. If you look at some of the mock drafts that have come through, that they've had us picking the wide receiver out of Ohio State. They've had us picking Golden, the wide receiver out of University of Texas, right? So there are people who think. I've seen a few where they've got us drafting an offensive lineman. So you're not crazy. Well, you kind of are, but you're not crazy in this thought process.
Right
right here. But yeah, so I mean, it's possible, man. And I think that's, if you're a Washington fan having to sit around and wait for the 29th pick, then this is the kind of intrigue you have to be looking at going into this draft, because we're not picking early. And so what's going to happen on the back end of the draft? Now, again, your boy said they're going to trade out, but
Yep.
I was listening to John's podcast and John Kine's podcast, and he talked about it, and Logan Paulson, and then mentioned that Fred made the point of they'd rather have 2 good players in the second round than 1 good player in the first round.
Sure.
If they trade back, because of the way how compact and how close in talent the players are in this year's draft. So you could probably find 2 starters in the second round if you trade back out of the first, instead of having just the 1 in the first. And so I'd be fine with it. I'd be fine with it, man, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, we did it last year, or well, we traded out of a second round pick that we had and slid back, and we did that with Philly. So it goes to show you that Adam Peters is willing to make the moves if it makes sense for Washington. And again, that would not surprise me whatsoever if we slide out of the first round. Have you looked at any of the defensive ends and found 1 or 2 that potentially would fall in the later in the back half? Because you look, Jonathan Allen was supposed to be a top 7 pick, and he slid to us at 15-ish,
19 or
19, 17. Yeah. I mean, but he slid not just 2 or 3 slots. He slid 8 or 10 slots back than where he was kind of projected by most draft boards. So anybody in the back half of the projections that you like? It doesn't mean he's going to end up being with Washington, but is there a defensive end or 2 that you like?
Yeah, there's 2 of them, man. One is James Pierce Jr. And
I'm on that one as well, but go ahead.
Okay.
You weren't ready for that. I know that's a shot. So that surprised you.
And then the other guy was Donovan Iziraku. I think if I said his name right.
Okay.
Iziraku.
Out of Boston College.
Out of Boston College. Yeah. That guy. Let's call him DE.
Yeah.
So those are probably the 2, because I think based on a lot of the reports that are out there is that these 2 guys could be available late in the first round, just due to some issues. For example, James Pierce Jr., right? Apparently his deal is there's some off the field concerns. The Donovan Iziraku, the kid out of Boston College, everyone loves the production that he had in college. But the concern is that he's only like 6'2". I think he's small. And so the concern would be how he would be up against 6'6", 6'7", left and right tackles in the NFL, right? They said that sometimes he may struggle against power. So his move, his superpower, as Dan Quinn likes to say, would be his speed, his ability to get around, to bend and get around, because he's smaller than a lot of the tackles. So he's able to get lower than they can get, and he's fast, he's speed, he's very athletic, and get around. But people can't knock the production he had in college. So that's what makes him an intriguing prospect. But he would be down. He would be still available on the draft board for those reasons. So is he a situational pass rusher? Ding, ding, ding. That's what we just talked about.
Right.
Or is he a kid that can just overcome the size, right? And just ends up being a hell of a football player because he just knows how to play defensive end. But those would be the 2 guys that I would be interested in from a defensive end perspective, sitting around there in the 29th spot.
Yeah. I've seen a handful of boards where Donovan is slotted to be a Washington pick potentially. The funny thing you mentioned James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I like him. If you watch tape on him, he is I think he needs to put on 15 pounds of muscle. He's a tall, long guy, but he's quick and fast. And but the funny thing I see with him as far as projections, like I said, I like what I see him on film, attacking and getting after the quarterback, or running backs that are out in the flat that he's running down and chasing down. But James Pierce Jr., I've seen him 7 or 8 different projections. I've seen him as high as number 8, and I've seen him I guess 3 out of 8 or 9 where he's not even in the first round. So
because of his off the field issue.
correct,
That's
correct.
what concerns about.
So he's kind of going to be a mystery player, and I think you're going to end up hearing them if he slides past, I'll say 20. It'll be one of the names that, how they have a couple names up on the board for different teams and different needs. If anybody has a defensive end need, I think his name is going to be on the board as a potential draft pick. But he could be this year's slide. Last year in the NFL, there were 5 trades in the first round. Used to be back in the day that there were maybe one draft day or
trades are way more common now.
Yes. Well, even during the day, right? You might have it a week or two before somebody makes a move and a trade to do something, but during the draft, you had 5 trades last year, which is becoming common.
Yeah, it's very, very common. I don't have a problem with James Pierce Jr., but to the point that you just mentioned, this is where you have to count on your scouting and the people that are around and what your research that you've dug into. And because I tell you, man, if apparently this kid is a boom or bust, right? He's either going to be a hell of a steal if he falls, or he's going to be that player that's going to make a GM be like, you couldn't resist it, you did
Right.
it, and now you're paying for it.
Right.
Because the kid is just going to be problems. And I'd be the first to tell you, I don't know what the issues and what the concerns are. But whatever it is widely known and among NFL circles, and we won't know until draft day if that was just something that teams are talking about or if it's real. Because if it's real, he's going to slide.
Well, and it's a matter of what the problems are. Is it a one-time problem, or is it 7 times that had the problem? And then depending on what the problem is, or problems plural are, how is he as a teammate? How is he? Was he a distraction when he was on the field, and not just on the field during the game, on the field during practices, during the film time and everything? Was he locked in for that? We all made mistakes. Some of us got caught, some of us didn't when we're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. I'm not trying to be dismissive of it, but we make changes and we become hopefully successful in life, just as a human being, not necessarily financially successful, but just a successful person in society. Hopefully that's what he can be, whether he's with Washington or wherever. You like to see kids that potentially have made mistakes and can get their life back on track, especially if you can hit it big in the NFL and get everything.
I would just say this. I remember, again, I don't know what the off the field issues are with this kid, but I remember the year Randy Gregory out of Nebraska was a top 5 pick.
Yep.
And I wanted him really bad. But
I remember that.
He fell in the draft. He fell in the draft and he kept falling. And then Dallas got him. And I was like, son of a. And then all of the issues started. And I remember thinking, man, did we dodge a bullet? And then it comes out later on that this kid had failed multiple drug tests in college. The university covered it up. Everybody enabled him to cover this up.
Right.
But the interesting thing was a lot of teams shied away from him, but Dallas picked him, and he fought those demons throughout his career. The entire time he was in Dallas, there were times he didn't play for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He was either in rehab and all these kinds of things, and they stuck by him over the years, which is why when he finally got it together and had a big year, and then he left in free agency after all the years the Cowboys stood by him. And the
Right.
fans were pissed at him for that. But my point in the story is I'm going to always trust the team because they have more knowledge and backstories to the situations that are going on than we do as fans. And so if they decide to pass on James Pierce, and some other teams pass on him, then it is what it is, man. Sometimes, the life lessons are hard lessons.
Right.
And
Well,
there's consequences for that.
And part of it is what was the problem, right?
Like I said, I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't even want to speculate. He could have, stole a bunch of crabs and still has an NFL career. We know of people like that.
I mean, look at I wish you had the picture, but look at Laramie Tunsil, right? He out here hot boxing with a gas mask on, right? And he's going on his first round pick and then signed 2 big contracts.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of career type of deal, but when you get guys that tends to fall and there's some issues off the field, depending what they are, boy, they could really, really haunt you.
Right. We shall see. We shall see. Just another name or two that could potentially fall. Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. I'm going to be surprised if he falls far enough to Washington. He's the second best tight end behind Loveland out of Michigan. I don't think he's going to fall that far to number 29, but when you watch him, he very much reminds me of a Chris Cooley. He's a big guy. He's not a super fast guy, but when you watch tape of him, he has a knack for, especially in zone coverage, of just finding that hole. And then when he runs hard, and he will lower a shoulder and take on a safety or a cornerback and pick up a handful of yards. If you try to tackle him high, you're going to get rolled over.
Man, it sound like you just described Ben Sinnott.
Well, that's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping. Ben Sinnott is actually a lot taller. He's taller and was known more for his catching, but 5 catches don't tell me that you're known for it in the NFL. At running back, I don't know if he's going to fall, but I think a lot of people are keeping an eye on Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. He's probably the second, but I think on most people would consider him the second running back. He's a shifty guy. He has some power, but when he gets past the line of scrimmage, past the first layer, and he starts getting to the linebackers and the quarterbacks and safeties coming up, man, he's got a shiftiness about him that people don't hit him square once he gets past that first layer. They'll tackle him, don't get me wrong, but he will shift and make you miss or make you unsure of where he is going, and it allows him to pick up an extra 3, 5, 7, 10 yards off of that. So somebody else that you might want to keep an eye on if he falls to Washington.
Well, the notes I have on him is that they said that the concerns with him is his vision. So the point that you're making, if he gets through the line, he's shifty and can make people miss and all that, but apparently there's concerns about his vision to get
hitting the line.
Yes.
Yeah. And we've seen that with running backs. That was a big thing with Antonio Gibson when we tried to convert him over. I think it was spots and lines and that he took weren't always the most beneficial. There were better cuts or ways for him to go that he would have been more successful. I don't want to put that all on Hampton, but it could be. And the other running back, have you seen Tootin out of Virginia Tech?
No.
Man, the kid is fast. I mean, fast. I'm not going to put him at initially in college. I'm not going to try and say that he's this crazy, great running back. But when he gets past the line, watch out. He's got. I think he was third or fourth in the combine on the 40 combine time. 4.32 as a
Third
running back.
overall or third for running backs
Overall. I think he was fourth overall. There were no other running backs faster than him. I think it was like one running back and two cornerbacks that were a pinch faster. But 4.32 40 speed. If you go watch Tootin out of Virginia Tech, man, people just stop chasing him. He busting them for 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. They get down around the 20-yard line. Like, I'm not even chasing this guy anymore, man. They turn and head towards the sideline to get some Gatorade, man.
Oh,
Kid is fast.
Okay.
So, and he's not going to be a first round pick. I think you end up getting him maybe third round, potentially. So just somebody to keep your eye on. And cause I'm all on offense, right?
I see that. Well, the kid, just the only kid that I'm outside of Omarion Hampton, the name I keep hearing a lot is the kid out of Ohio State, TreVeyon Henderson.
Well, they got two running backs out of there, but yeah.
Yeah, well, the TreVeyon Henderson is the one that I'm referring to.
Okay.
He can basically catch and run out of the backfield, right? So that's the kind of running back style in today's NFL.
Right.
Speedster, to your point, talk about a lot of speed. The concern, which is why he will probably fall in the draft to be available in the second round, I'm sorry, is simply because of his size. They said his size could be an issue for pass protection, which is important in the NFL, and a little bit for breaking tackles.
Yeah. And Tootin's on the smaller side as well. I think he's 5'7", 5'8". He's not a big guy, so you better be doing everything else right when you're that small. Ask Malcolm Forbes about being small. Why did I say Malcolm Forbes again? I've done that a couple times. That's how insignificant he is.
Right? Y'all leave the man alone.
I don't even have to worry about his name.
He's not even here anymore. I don't know why you keep messing with that guy. And for those that are questioning who the hell Ken's talking about, he's talking about Forbes.
I said Forbes. I just said Malcolm Forbes. I got his first name wrong. What's his first name, Reggie? Come on, Dan. See, he don't know either.
Emmanuel. Come on, man.
Okay.
Don't do me like that. You know I know who it is. I was trying to see what you knew.
It took you a minute. That's okay, but that's okay.
He's talking about Emmanuel Forbes.
Emmanuel Malcolm Forbes. I just knew him by his middle name. You didn't even know his middle name was Malcolm, did you? But anyway.
Stop lying to the people. He don't have a middle name.
Y'all go look that up. Y'all look that up and get back to me. Emmanuel Malcolm Forbes. But anyway, that's you got anybody else that you want to cover that you want anybody to keep an eye on?
Nope. Just as much as I want them to trade out, don't trade out. Let's go get our guy.
I'm fine with trading out. I think this year, normally I wouldn't be a trade out guy or trade back. I really don't like trading back, man. It just because I can't guarantee that something's going to be better back behind, right? I want the first pick every time. I don't care if it's the NFL draft or I'm picking for the kickball team back in 4th grade. I want the first pick. And so I don't want to slide back. Typically in this case, I have zero problem. If somebody's in the second round and they want to give me their second and third round pick to take my first, I don't want them to be the 32nd pick in the second and third round. But if you're mid-level or earlier in the second and third round pick, you got my attention. So
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I want them to trade out. They're trading out, and I want them to trade out.
Reggie, you got anything else on this?
I got nothing else, man.
We're going to come back and do an evaluation at the beginning of the week. Potentially have a guest a guest on the show to go over it with us.
Yeah, we'll have somebody that covers the team to discuss the draft and get the thoughts on the draft, how Washington did based on the picks and the direction of the team, and just get the overall thoughts on the draft weekend. So we'll be able to add some opinions to that, some opinions other than ours. So
Yeah.
so look for that. Look for that next week after the draft.
Sounds good. Until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out, y'all.